Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Media Matters for Anfield Index. The international break is nearly over, not quite yet. There's still a few games left to go, and more importantly, the Reds are back in action on Saturday, aren't they, against Nottingham Forest? Saturday, 3 o'clock. We don't get too many of them, so we'll see what that brings. There's also things going on off the pitch, contracts, transfers, plenty to talk about. And I'm joined as ever by the renowned and the respected David Lynch. And David, it is the international break just now. You can be honest with us. Watched any? Kept abreast of anything?
Not massively. I do try and kind of switch off from it in these periods because it's obviously so busy usually. So I haven't watched loads, but you obviously see clips, don't you? Clips of goals, clips of little bits of performances and stuff. And and I think kind of the positives and the negatives from that. So I've seen little bits and bobs, but I can't say I've been fully studying it in the way that a lot of football managers will have been.
No, fingers crossed. Most are just hoping our players come back without injuries, which, touch wood, seems to be okay so far. And there's just a few things it's worth calling out or just asking you about that we've noticed from the international break. Hugo Ekitike got his first goal for France. As he said, it's a childhood dream. Every time I get minutes, I try to show my abilities, and I'm here to help the team. I'm happy to be rewarded. Did you see this one, by the way? Did you see his first goal and the clip of it all?
Yeah, really, really nicely taken. Just a lovely kind of team goal in terms of the way it was worked as well. And he's put it away well, which, we've seen so much evidence of that for Liverpool so far, haven't we? He's got that composure in and around the box. He can get those little exchanges going, good feet and a tidy finishes. So really good to see him continue that. And I always think, there can be kind of upsides to international football in that, players keep the confidence going, or they get confidence, get goals, and that can help them if they're in a tough spot. Obviously, he's been playing really, really well, but to be able to sustain that and come back as an international goal scorer now, I'm sure that will only help him grow. Because he's still a young player, so there's so many kind of milestones ahead of him, and this is just the latest one. So you just like to think that he'll take that form now into Liverpool, but he is already been very good for Liverpool since he signed.
Yeah, we won't mind seeing a few more of those. And I don't know if you noticed, because he came on in the first one where he got his goal and then he started the second game. Did you notice where France played him in both of those?
Yeah, so it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because obviously it's been kind of talk about that, the possibility of Liverpool trying that out, Arne Slot trying that out. I don't really necessarily see him as kind of a natural left winger. I don't know. Obviously, Deschamps disagrees, but it's not somewhere he's kind of, you look and he's not really played there over his career so far. He's been very much a centre forward. Now he's clearly capable of doing it, and Slot did bring him on, didn't he, on the left hand side against Galatasaray, and then it lasted for like 2 minutes because Isak got an injury. So it's obviously something they can think about and something they might want to try. I'm not sure Liverpool are in the spot now where they want to kind of experiment in that way. But it's good to have options and versatility, isn't it? And so for him to be able to do that is pretty handy. But, I know that he obviously scores his goal from very much a centre-forward position. So if you're ever going to use him there, it's very much in mind with him coming into those kind of central spots. And I think, you're thinking if you're going to use a winger who's basically a centre forward is going to come into those spots in the way Liverpool did, you need a kind of facilitator in the middle, like a Firmino type. And for me, actually, Ekitike with his ability to drop deep and link play is the closest Liverpool have got to that. So either way, if you're going to use a centre forward out wide, he still probably for me feels a little bit better suited to the centre forward role. So, and the fact that you've got Gakpo there, you've got Wirtz can play there and has done recently. Obviously, Rio and Gamoa coming through as well. Not sure it's something we're going to see loads of, but as I say, it's never a bad thing to have that versatility in the squad.
No, and to be fair, if he keeps scoring and keeps playing well, that's all we can ask for. And you mentioned one of his potential rivals, partners, however people describe it. Alexander Isak was back in action. I mean, Sweden were horrendous and they got pumped, but at least he's back on the pitch. I suppose in terms of for us, this is a positive, isn't it? Because he's getting minutes and they've got a game on Tuesday as well. And we're not sort of making sweeping judgments, but when Liverpool invest 125 million, you want to start seeing some returns soon, don't you?
Oh, 100%. I mean, you've got to kind of judge him quite harshly. And I know that sounds kind of unfair for me to say that, someone who covers Liverpool, but, Liverpool don't usually spend these huge sums of money. And when they do, you expect that the signings are going to deliver. And we're in November now, and he's got one League Cup goal to his name. He hasn't played well, particularly at all, really, from what we've seen. And, as much as you can say, oh, well, you can give him time. Well, he's 26 years old and he costs 125 million. And, you want immediate kind of returns on that investment when you're spending that sort of money. So, you hope that he can get over this. I've got a big worry that this season's just going to completely get away from him, to be honest, because you've seen it so many times, haven't you, where a player gets an injury at the start and they never really get going after that because the pre-season they can't really kind of catch up. I really hope I'm wrong about that, but I've just seen it so many times through the years where players have done that exact same thing, and it'll almost be kind of his second season before you see anything close to his real level. Like I say, I really hope that's not true, and I hope getting a couple of minutes on international duty now, he's got another game ahead of him, will be really helpful in terms of him coming back fit, and then at some point we can start to see the best of him. But yeah, his price tag demands that. And I would also say kind of, of all the things that we're diagnosing about the problems that Liverpool have got, you've got a centre forward there who's done virtually nothing when he cost you so much money. And I mean, we can talk about tactics and all these issues that Liverpool have got. That's going to be a problem for you when you've got a player that good who is just doing nothing at the moment. He's providing less than Darwin Núñez at the moment. That, Liverpool have kind of downgraded in that area in that sense. As much as Ekitike has stepped up and done really well, Isak's just doing very little at the moment. And I know I'm sounding like I'm being really harsh there, but it's just true. And so football is as much about the players. And so to get him fit and firing Liverpool won't have to play perfectly for him to turn things if he's doing well, because he just scores goals and he creates things, and he's a world class centre forward. So you need to see that after the international break, really, and hopefully the games will help.
Does feel as well for us a pivotal period for him as well if he's going to start to do things this season. And I suppose in terms of others attacking players, Mo Salah, we had the good news that he's not going to take part in Egypt's second game of friendly against whoever it is. So is that probably a good thing, just that he's getting a bit of rest before he comes back?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think, with his age now, you've just got to look after him a little bit more. And, he did start to show signs of coming to life, didn't he, prior to the international break? I thought Real Madrid and Aston Villa was very, very good in those games. And, I don't think anybody played well at City, so I'm not really ready to level that one at him, to be honest. So, I think it's important that he gets those rests. It shows that Liverpool have got that good relationship with the Egypt FA as well, because they tend to be really kind of understanding about these things. And so, will be good to get him back, hopefully fresh, and hopefully he can, get back to his kind of best form in this run that's coming up.
Well, you mentioned they've got a good relationship. I don't know if that's kind of come out in the last 24 hours is going to test it, because Egypt want him for a friendly on December the 14th against Nigeria. That's their build-up to AFCON. Now, the thing to say is that game is December the 14th. Liverpool have got a game against Brighton on December the 13th. So that's just a big fat no from Liverpool, surely.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I mean, I'm not saying this with any insight because it's not something I've kind of checked up on so far or been able to get any info on. But I'd just be surprised if he goes. Judging how these situations have gone in the past, and like I say, the good relationship they've got, I would be kind of surprised if he does end up being called up for that one, because as much as they want to prep for AFCON, they know he's a star player. I think he'll want to stick around for the Brighton game and kind of finish up there. So I don't think he will be involved, if I'm being honest. I think they often say that side of things, like, oh, we'd like to get him, we'd like to call him up, that's the aim. Yeah. And then it never kind of happens in the end. So just judging by what we've seen before and how Liverpool tend to manage this relationship, I don't think he will be part of that.
You would be surprised and be horrified, to be honest, especially with the run we've got till Christmas. We'll see if anything develops on that. And I suppose the other sort of internationals, there's still a few players that we've got to get back, so we're crossing fingers and everything on that. But one that may have gone under the radar, Did you see Rio Ungamoa's wonder goal? I know it was against a Latvia under-19 side, but it's still a hell of a strike, wasn't it?
Yeah, he's just a brilliant young player, isn't he? And shouldn't forget that, because he's not seeing an awful lot of the pitch at the moment. I'd say he's definitely too good for kind of under-19s level at the moment, which is why you maybe not seeing a lot of him there for Liverpool, really. So, a good confidence boost for him. And again, not playing much at the moment, so good for him to go away and be able to do that, and to get minutes and make mistakes and make decisions on the pitch, and kind of, just all these things kind of aid his development a little bit. And so the goal will be great for him, and I'm pleased to see him get it.
Yeah, it does feel like he needs it, because I think Lewis Bowe put out a tweet just before we went for this international break that he didn't see any minutes across any Liverpool age range, like the senior squad, the under-21s. We've had Rob Page talk about how Trey Nyone's been struggling a bit with his role or his lack of football almost in between. It might be almost a sweeping question, but I think it's important to ask him, or ask it to you right now. How do you think we are handling the development right now of Rio Ungamoa and Trey Nyone?
I think everyone involved would admit that it's not an ideal situation that both of them are seeing so little minutes at the moment. I mean, Trey, in fairness, is involved in the youth league, so he's been getting games in that. I think he can play better in those as well, by the way. You do wonder, you're starting to wonder kind of if he can't get minutes there, and then he's coming in and he's looking a bit, he's looked good in moments, but not great in others. So it's kind of, he's a bit up and down, and I just wonder whether kind of that consistency is lacking, because he's not being challenged consistently enough outside of training, but in a real competitive environment. So with him, is he kind of, do Liverpool look at it and think maybe a loan might be good for him here because, of where he's kind of up to? So that's an interesting one. And with Ungamoa, the problem is that he's the next cab off the rank, really, in terms of the left wing. But obviously, I get the impression that the manager doesn't want to use him in situations where it's kind of, it's so difficult at the moment and there's so much pressure on, and it's not an easy place to put him in. And I think, at the start of the season when it was going well, we were seeing him coming off the bench and influencing things. And since then, the results have turned. And so it's like, do you really want to be turned into this young kid and saying, can you save us here or whatever? So I don't think they want to put too much pressure on him, really. So, but I'm sure there's plenty of minutes left for him. I think Ungamoa is closer naturally because of how the squad is made up. So I'd like to think there's a lot of minutes for him between now and the end of the season. And with Trey, maybe a decision to make on a loan. But again, I think that will probably be deferred till the end of the season, really, because again, there's no League Cup now, so that does hurt him a little bit. So maybe that does expedite things. But then the FA Cup game will come around, and of course that will be in January. So if Liverpool get knocked out there, maybe there's a decision to make for him to go on loan in the second half of the season, because it's hard to see where he gets his minutes otherwise. But for Ungamoa, I don't think he'd be in that conversation for a loan. And I guess your overall question was, are they handling it well? And I think they would admit probably not at the moment. But there are a few moving parts, and let's kind of see what happens in the second part of the season.
Yeah, still plenty of time. It will be interesting to see how that develops. And I suppose the final bit of the international break, you don't usually get too much drama in international football, but probably heartbreak for two of the Hungarians, wasn't it? The last-minute Ireland goal. It was a hell of a game, wasn't it? But disaster for Szoboszlai and Kirkes there.
Yeah, I mean, as a Lynch, I've got to say, not totally devastated by Ireland getting through on that one. That's a brilliant moment to watch, and yeah, Troy Parrott, unbelievable, really. So, but yeah, for the Hungarian lads, you just wonder about kind of what does that do for confidence, or does it give them a renewed kind of? You can take it both ways, can't you? It'll really harm the confidence. They'll come back feeling quite down, and because they look devastated at full time, but. Also, will it come back and say, right, well, I've got to throw everything into this rest of the season with my club now? I mean, with Szoboszlai in particular, he strikes me as someone who's got that kind of mentality that he'll be almost angry and coming back in a really, in the mood to turn things around for Liverpool. So, hopefully he'll be able to do that. And for Kirkes, a real blow for him. But again, he's very young, and a lot of major tournaments coming up throughout his career. And again, he really needs to focus coming back to Liverpool and kind of getting it right, because it's not been a fantastic start from him. Some good, some bad, and mostly kind of on the bad side recently, obviously getting dropped by Robertson. So, again, can that refocus him now? Can he come back and use that as motivation? Hopefully so, from a a Liverpool perspective.
Yeah, that interview that Szoboszlai gave afterwards was kind of like Ivan Drago in Rocky 4, wasn't it? It just looked deadly, so fingers crossed he wants to take it out on Nottingham Forest and other teams. And we still got a few to come back. We're still hoping Robbo, Vert, as we mentioned as well, the Dutch boys, so it could, touch wood, end how we want it to. We'll see what happens there. In terms of other bits, now, when I first started looking at this, there wasn't much. And then Ibu Konate opened his mouth, didn't he? Not once, but twice on international duty. And to be fair, I think it's fair to say it's the talking point, or it's been the talking point this weekend, just in case people have missed it. And to be absolutely clear, one of the comments he said was, I've seen a lot of things in the press recently, like Liverpool have made me a new offer. I don't know where that's coming from. My agents are continuing discussions with Liverpool. I hope my decision will be made very soon so I can announce it. And then the second bit was, with obviously everything that's going on, it's difficult. We can't say everything because a lot of the things are already being said in the media. Some of the things that I read, I'm like, ooh la la, that puts me in a tight spot with Liverpool fans, and they don't even know all the ins and outs. I mean, sounded like a low character saying that a little bit, but
I actually couldn't believe he said that. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's a bit like, I thought it was just a joke stereotype, but there you go. I mean, there's a lot to unpack here. What have you made of those comments? Because they've not exactly quietened it down, have they?
No. And yeah, you could kind of read into those either way, can't you? Which I think tells you exactly where the situation is, which is what I personally have consistently reported here, is that stuff is still up in the air. He's saying they're kind of shooting down the idea of an offer. And I do think that always gets overstated, kind of contract offers and exactly how that works. I kind of, with Liverpool particularly, they never really kind of formalize contract offers in the thingy that they kind of want to go negotiate there till basically the whole thing's nailed down, and then it's there and you've kind of agreed it rather than anything else. So I never really kind of buy into those reports around that. But it is just at the moment, everything kind of up in the air. They are in talks. There are other clubs interested who are going to put their offers on the table. I was going to say in January, but no doubt they already have.
Yeah.
And he has a decision to make around that. And Liverpool will have a red line around where they want to go to. So all those factors are there. But I can, guarantee I had a conversation with someone kind of close to that quite recently. And they said, it is all possibilities are on the table. So, and I know people don't like that uncertainty, but it's just the reality at the moment. So very, very hard to say which way it's going to play out in the end.
I mean, it's probably that big line that people jumped on. Hope my decision will be made very soon. And people swayed either way. It's like, that's good, that's bad. What's he announcing? What's he going to say? From Liverpool's perspective, I mean, surely they've learned a bit of the lessons from last season, because they don't want Ibu doing, over the mat and all sorts of things and the way it just rumbled on. Do you think it is going to be for Liverpool very soon? As in, like, will they draw a line like we need to know by January for planning, or will they let this rumble on further?
I don't think they'll be too fussed, just on the basis that, the way they'll operate is that they will be doing due diligence on all the players who could potentially replace him, getting in touch with their agents, getting a kind of feel for what they would demand, what it would take to get them out of the clubs, so that they're prepared for it. Because, you can't kind of put yourself in a situation where you say to the player, well, it's got to be decided by this time, because players like to drag it out, particularly if they're going to leave on a free. For Trent, it suited him to have Liverpool and Real Madrid battling each other to put the best contract on the table for as long as humanly possible. So, players don't like to be kind of put in a corner. So, all that's kind of going on in the background, and we'll just have to kind of wait and see. I don't think Liverpool will kind of put a deadline on it. All they can do is keep an eye on the centre halves that are out there who could potentially replace Konate, excuse me, if they need to do it.
Yeah. They'll be looking, they'll have things lined up, and it'll just be that final decision. We'll see if we get anything by January. In terms of other contracts, because they're starting to bubble, they really came to the surface a bit more this week. We had Lewis Steele, colleague of yours, mentioned that, talks for potential deals for McAllister, Gravenberch and Szoboszlai. And then Romano mentioning yesterday that Liverpool have offered a new deal to Dominic Szoboszlai. I mean, everyone wants Szoboszlai tied down because he's world class. He's been our player of the season so far, so that's good. There's talks of Gravenberch as well, has been mentioned by Romano. Weirdly, Lewis mentioned, Alexis McAllister, but there's nothing solid on that. You are hoping at least, maybe it's best to say, a couple of these get tied down soon as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting. It's quieter on McAllister, and that kind of noise about him going to Spain just bubbles up in the background quite consistently, doesn't it? So that's an interesting one to kind of keep an eye on. But a lot more kind of positive noises on Szoboszlai and Gravenberch, and I think positive with them. I think they seem comfortable and will be happy to sign up. I think Liverpool very keen to kind of recognise how important both are. Hopefully. And I guess they're both in that period now where, Liverpool don't want to end up in a situation where they get to 2 years with either. Yeah. So this is a key period. This is how you avoid it, is by getting it wrapped up now. And so hopefully they are able to. And the noises are undoubtedly positive. Gravenberch, for me, and this is speaking to people close to him, has always seemed keen to sign up. I think Szoboszlai seems happy as well. So, hopefully a case of when, not if, with both of them.
It is hopefully that, and obviously they seem happy, which is great. I suppose it's part with the contracts, because I know everyone wants it like, let's get it done as fast as possible. Liverpool this summer, the way they've done it, they gave Van Dijk and Salah top money, elite money, as we know, to renew as that came out. They've pushed, they've upped Cody Gakpo as well. Just in terms of the market, agents will be looking and saying, well, you gave these players top dollars. So if you want my clients to renew, don't try and shortchange it as well.
Yeah, there's no doubt there'll be expensive contract renewals. I mean, I think both would acknowledge that Van Dijk and Salah have got a certain importance in terms of what they produce on the field, so they probably won't be anywhere near that. But yeah, it does kind of benchmark everything and it pushes it up. But I think we've seen consistently from FSG, and it's funny, everybody's criticising those decisions now, but it was like everyone trying to make out they were tight and they don't reward the players. They absolutely do, and they consistently have done over the years. Sometimes to a degree of kind of regret when you think about, Fabinho and kind of what happened there. Jordan Henderson went through a similar thing, and, everybody's saying now it's a mistake to give Van Dijk and Salah the contracts. Well, where were all the people who were saying that over the summer? So I think you can say that the FSG and this ownership and the sporting director and that entire setup will reward players and tie them down. So I think you should have confidence that will be the case.
Yeah, I do hope, like you said, we don't want to get into that 2-year period. And I mean, speaking of other players that are running their contract down, and Adam Wharton, we've been talking about Marc Guehi and where he might go. Now, this one, it's weird because it kind of gone quiet in terms of, I think, colleagues like Romano, Ornstein, Paul Joyce had all said Liverpool are not going to move for Marc Guehi. So that kind of moved it off the table. But it kind of seems to have started again. And then Adam Wharton's, a Crystal Palace player, even says on England duty, well, we'll have to see. Nothing set for January. Do you think maybe with Konate's situation, if that doesn't get done, i.e. Ibu does move on, signs a pre-contract elsewhere, are we actually thinking, is there anything could happen with Marc Guehi, or is it still smart money, summer, freebie?
Yeah, I've not heard anything that makes me think that stance has changed. It's still the whole thing of kind of what amount of money would make Crystal Palace want to do this. That's the key aspect, because it's like, well, you could they might say, all right, well, 20 million, we're not that bothered about this half season we've got left. But then it's like, for Marc Guehi as well, Liverpool probably won't. Why would you go to 20 million for someone you could get in 6 months for absolutely nothing? And then for Marc Guehi, he's playing well. He's potential to win another trophy this season. He really is happy at Crystal Palace, and everything's going pretty swimmingly there. It's a World Cup year, so you keep playing and keep yourself in rhythm so you can end the season well, rather than changing things and going somewhere where you might not immediately be on the starting 11. So. It doesn't really make sense for a player or Crystal Palace to do it, or even Liverpool, considering what the price would be, really. So, I just don't see a world where that kind of gets done in January, personally. And there's a comment there that says, so because we lose 40 million if we miss out on the Champions League, but you can't ever, clubs can't work in this mindset of like, well, we've got to spend now because then if we
Gamble.
don't, we'll miss out on the Champions League. But it's like, well, what if you spend and you miss out on the Champions League?
Yeah.
Nobody ever thinks of like the worst case scenario, and the clubs have got to think about it. So I just think that's nonsense, really. And, you know, people only ever think signings are good. Well, it's like, well, you know, you think about everyone was kind of tripping over themselves to say that Kirkes will be this massive upgrade on Robertson, and that hasn't kind of worked out yet. So you've just got to think about it like the clubs do. And people get annoyed about when I say this, but it's just true. And I know this is how they operate. That it would have to be a large sum for Crystal Palace to want to do it. And I just really doubt that Liverpool are going to want to go there in January for that. And I also doubt that the player's going to really push for it. It makes more sense for him to move on a free as well.
Yeah, it's World Cup year as well. Players are going to be reluctant to move if they're in teams as well for things like that. So that's going to come into the mix as well. I suppose this is a story that, again, just accelerated midweek. Antoine Semenyo just seems to be almost a hot link. There's various accounts, but it's more important to say we're talking big outlets because Sky Sports had it that Liverpool are monitoring him and other clubs. And more importantly, I'm not going to try and pronounce his name here, but Bournemouth's general manager did talk about, in his words, an opportunity to win. He mentioned Real Madrid, but he also mentioned, I mean, look at this for a quote. When a club like Real Madrid, Liverpool, PSG come in and they're competing for Champions League positions, who are we to say, no, you can't go, you can't fulfill your dreams? I mean, let's be honest, that's not going to quiet it, is it really? That's just that's petrol on the fire.
Yeah, but he's just speaking kind of generally, isn't he? Again, you know, I'm not sure. It'd be interesting to kind of see what his clause is, really. I mean, that will decide everything. If it's really reasonable in January, Liverpool may just take a look and say, well, you know, this is an opportunity we can't miss in the same way that the Gakpo one was an opportunity we can't miss. And I like drawing the parallels there because I just think like it was the last thing that Liverpool needed at the moment to sign Gakpo. But it was like, well, it wasn't a signing for then. It was a signing, well, we can only get him at this price in this moment. Let's not wait. And because there are other clubs sniffing around. And if Semenyo is cheap or cheaper than he would be, and they think he ticks all the boxes, then, you know, maybe there's something there. Because Bournemouth seem like they would be willing sellers in January as well, from judging from those kind of quotes, really. So it's all that's got to come together. But I am a little bit kind of skeptical about him as a signing, just on the basis of, and I must say this is not insight, this is just my opinion. But I am kind of skeptical about it just because I've still got kind of suspicions over his his shooting, and he's on a bit of a hot run in terms of it's just hitting the back of the net at the moment. Yeah. When he comes out of that, is he as valuable? Maybe Liverpool see him as he can get a few goals. If we can up his shot selection and make him better in that, it'll be really, really good for us. And also, he does everything else, which is like he wins aerial duels, he runs his socks off. He's like absolutely brilliant in terms of the defensive aspects of the game. And they've definitely lost that a little bit down the left-hand side. So maybe that's why they would see him as an opportunity. But his attacking numbers for me are not like absolutely, wow, this guy is elite, really. So I'll be really interested to see if anything comes of that. But it would have to be because they see that opportunity rather than I think they think that it would fix anything in January. I just think it's got a lot in common with the Gakpo signing, maybe if it were to come off.
Yeah, because you would be asking if we're spending 65, 70, whatever it's going to take to free Antoine Semenyo and bring him here. Why isn't that going on a defender, a DM, something like that, which is more needed at the moment? So we'll see on that one. In terms of January developments the other way, this is a little bit quiet. Are we expecting anything? I mean, Harvey Elliott might be kind of hokey-cokey in your fancy, possibly coming back to go out again. But there is question marks still of like Chiesa is being linked away. Joe Gomez is not playing any minutes at all. Do you think there is potential departures at all in January?
It all depends about the market being there for them. I think with kind of Joe Gomez is a good example in that, you know, if a really good opportunity for him comes up, then he would probably be keen to go for it because he's not playing much at the moment. But again, then that brings in things for Liverpool of kind of, well, what do we do about replacement? And of course, you know, it kind of softened things. If they were to get a decent fee for Gomez in January, then maybe you start thinking differently about the Guehi situation. That's where things will kind of change. If they can kind of do almost a swap there in what they're getting, maybe they would think about it a little bit differently. But again, obviously, then the players' wishes comes into it. Crystal Palace, what they think. So that's, the stuff that kind of leans against it. But, I don't think they would let anyone go like a Gomez if they weren't able to replace them at the time. I think they would just say, come on, stick with us till the end of the season. And similarly with Chiesa, who has kind of took on more importance than maybe anyone kind of expected this season. So, Harvey Elliott, it's a strange one. Does he get in the team a little bit more when they get the other side of the international break? It's a really interesting situation, and whether that one ends up rolling on till the end of the season. I'm sure there will be talks ongoing there about whether that needs to be just nipped in the bud because they're not going to sign him now. Maybe we will see movement on that in January.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see if there's anything the other way. And then the only other story, which I suppose it kind of links to McAllister and what we've discussed there, and it's one maybe for the summer rather than right now, but links continue over a summer move for Adam Wharton. You've seen links to, Belabor, Elliot Anderson keeps getting mentioned. I think he's obviously jumping ahead, but with the situation as it is now, question marks around McAllister, you feel that I think Liverpool need one anyway, personally, but they're going to be in the market for a midfielder, maybe a DM type as well.
Yeah, I think this is the thing with the Wharton one. It feels just inextricably linked to McAllister's situation to me at the moment, and the fact he's not, we're not hearing anything about a contract at the moment. The suggestions of interest in him. I just find that really interesting because I don't see how you can make another midfielder work without selling one. You've just got to, and I don't mean Endo, by the way, because he plays no minutes whatsoever. Yeah. It's got to be someone significant if you're going to sign someone significant like a Wharton. I do have little concerns over him in that he does pick up injuries consistently, and I don't think he's the out-and-out defensive midfielder that people think he is. His defensive numbers just aren't really there at all. So you're still going to see Gravenberch as your dedicated six. And I know people don't like that. So people need to kind of have that little conversation, I think. But there's definite interest in Wharton there. And it's just whether they follow up on it or not. Because I'm sure there are other clubs there as well.
Yeah, he will be popular, especially after the World Cup. That price tag may well rise. We'll see if anything comes later on with that. I suppose the last bit on transfers and contract talk, you've always been big on this, haven't you? That we use the word churn a lot. Churn isn't a good thing, really, isn't it? Probably maybe Liverpool are feeling that, aside from many things that go into the mix, but part of it being linked to the amount of turnover, churn, however you want to put it, this summer.
Yes, it's absolutely massive, and it's kind of worrying that there's more coming down the pipeline potentially as we're talking about it. So, I do think it's a massive issue, and I think it's something that, in fairness, I think what Liverpool wanted to do this summer was to get a lot of it out of the way, and so these short-term teething problems that we're seeing, they hope that in the kind of the next couple of years that they see the benefits of that and they don't have to make real sweeping changes to the first team. But I think around that, there's still going to be potential for a lot more changes going forward in terms of, we're talking about having a squad man like a Joe Gomez there you can rely on when he's obviously Federico Chiesa getting your goals off the bench, players like that. There's a lot of kind of question marks over those. So you're looking at potential further change, but I think the hope is that Andy Robertson's situation, for me at the moment, he doesn't feel like someone who's going to sign a new contract. So again, you're looking at another left back. But I think the idea is that you get to this end of this season with a very settled kind of first 11, and then of course that there will be changes around that. But the idea is that you keep that settled first 11, and all the churn next season is maybe the kind of the backup players that are getting. You're seeing changes made to, so maybe that would be less disruptive, I think, than maybe throwing a Kirkes straight into the mix, or an Isak who we've not seen the best of. Ekitike's done well, but again, he was thrown kind of straight into it. So I think that would be the idea, and hopefully that's less damaging, because I think we have seen real signs this season that when you have high turnover, it causes issues because the chemistry's never there.
I do wonder about it, because people obviously say, you're right, and hoping it's less, but even though, as we keep talking about the first teamers and maybe it'll be the secondary squad, is it still right to say you wouldn't bet solid money? And I'll just name the four I'm thinking of: Alisson, McAllister, Salah, Konate. Now that's 4 first teamers out of 11 there. Would you put solid money any of them will be at Anfield next season?
It's a fair point, really. I mean, Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Yeah, you could say, or you could make a case for all of those. I mean, Alisson, for me, it just would not be a shock at all. I think Mamardashvili is there to become the first choice, and that is really potentially on the cards. Obviously, Salah, with the season he's having. What I would say about Salah is that I've always got the sense from his side of things that he would prefer to leave on a free transfer if he was to leave. Makes more sense for him financially. I think it makes more sense. It just, Liverpool would love to get a fee, I'm sure, for him, but I think it makes more sense from the players' side to stick around. So, but you could make convincing cases for all of them to kind of move on this summer. I think Liverpool will want to limit that, but then I said that about last summer, and I was proven completely wrong because they went in a new direction that we hadn't seen before. But I think they want to be careful about that next season and maybe take a little bite the bullet on a couple of them, even if they're not going to sign them to new deals. So, Salah or McAllister or whatever, maybe you just hang on a little longer than you wanted to because you don't want another season like this, and you don't want to turn into Chelsea where you're kind of swapping out 9 or 10 players every summer because, that you can see in their performances the damage that has done.
You can also see, like the last few seasons, how much we benefited from keeping a settled squad. And obviously, it took us to the league and the minimal changes with those circumstances. Probably part of, I think, why Arsenal are top so much is they only changed minimal, wasn't it? They were the only club that didn't do wholesale changes. So the evidence is there. But there are big question marks around what might happen with this. It is hard to predict so much. In terms of the immediate future, though, and this run coming up, you're looking at the games. The good thing is to say there's no international break. Well, I suppose AFCON obviously comes in January, but no full international break till March. It just feels like if Liverpool are going to do anything this season, this run coming up, especially the way through till New Year, it's got to be a good one, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think there's pressure on this run now because, as much as you can kind of say, I think they had a really tough start to the season in terms of the fixtures, an awful lot of really tough away games in there, settling new players in, everything else they kind of had to deal with and not being quite there. I don't think there were many in this run where if they had suffered defeat, you'd be able to kind of make excuses for them or come up with reasons because there's a lot of very, very winnable fixtures in here. And I think we saw against Villa and Real Madrid that this team can start to play now. It kind of a lot went out the window against Man City, but also you can say kind of was it a 3-0 and maybe a little bit unlucky in some of the moments, as poor as they were in the performance as well, by the way. Could they have got away with that one a little bit more maybe? So, I think this run, they've got to play well. They've got to pick up more points. And I think if they do that and we start to see more, you'll be a lot more encouraged about where this whole project's going in the future. But also, I just think they'll be so comfortably in third at the very least if they win a lot of these games. Then, any suggestion that this is a top 4 battle or anything like that, I think will be, put to one side really if they're able to play convincingly. But I think more than anything, I just want to see a consistent run of 9 decent performances here. I know they're not going to be perfect in every game. I know they're probably not going to win 9 from 9, but let's just see a run of good performances. And if you do that, you'll win the majority of the games, and your position in the Champions League, position in the Premier League will look a lot healthier. So, I just want to see them play well, really.
Yeah, it would be. The results play well. Like you said, probably there's no excuses for this run coming up. And even shorter term, you look just at this week coming up alone, they've got obviously the game against Forest on Saturday, then PSV at home. So 2 at home followed by West Ham away. But it's important to say you should be beating PSV in the Champions League. And those 2 league games, I know one's away, but it's against 18th and 19th. It's fair to say it's right to expect 9 from 9 across the competitions from this one.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, like one of the things I was talking about with the fixture list being difficult as well, I think they played 1 of the bottom 6 so far, and a lot of teams around them have had a lot more of those games. So, but then you've got to get to these games and you've got to make it pay, and you've got to get it right. So there's a pressure there in that you can point to your fixture list and say, oh, it's been really difficult. We've got to, we want to do better, but it's been hard for us because we've had to go to Palace away, we've had to go to Chelsea away, we've had to go to City away, all these things. But then when you get those kind of games coming around, make it happen, make it pay, and get the results over the line. And PSV, one of your weaker Champions League opponents, you've got to make that you get the win there. I don't want to be saying, well, I weren't the unlucky that actually Forest changed the manager and it's Sean Dyche and he made them organised, or West Ham had Nuno in and that had completely changed the way that game looked. These teams are low on confidence and they aren't playing very well at the moment. So just do better. Just go there and show what you're all about. So I think there's pressure on it for Liverpool. They have to make it happen, and if they do, I think things will look a lot healthier.
But yeah, you're right. There's pressure about it for the players, but especially with this run. I mean, you've always been adamant that there'll be no real pressure on Arne Slot whilst he's in that Champions League sort of picture or those runs. So he can't have a run he's had recently with these fixtures, otherwise the pressure will ramp up on him, won't it?
Yeah, because I mean they're 8th at the moment, but they're 2 points off 3rd, aren't they? So I mean that's absolutely, it's nothing, isn't it? You win kind of 3 games on the bounce and you're comfortably in the top 4, but you have to do it. So I think if you do start losing some of these games, you're losing to Nottingham Forest at home, and I know they got caught by surprise last season in that game a little bit. It just kind of was what it was, and Forest were very good. But if you lose that game this time around, I think you start to go, well, what is this season going to turn into? Is this going to turn into finishing 8th or something like that? So start winning these winnable games and just make sure Champions League is not in question. And I think for Arne Slot, then he buys himself time. And what you want to do here is you want to comfortably qualify for the Champions League. Maybe you want to have a little crack at it because Liverpool are playing well in it. The physical problems aren't being exposed there, and end the season strongly, really. So, but give yourself a platform to do it by performing well in these games, I think.
Yeah, it's got to happen. And I mean, in terms of the no excuse that we talked about, as far as we know from the injury picture, Alisson should be back possibly at any point, maybe even ready for Forest. Frimpong a little longer, but Frimpong's really, as long as, touchwood, the international break's good, the only real known absentee, isn't he?
Yeah, that's right. So, Alisson expected straight back, and then Frimpong just maybe a couple of games after that. But, we're closing in on a fully fit squad, which, was one of Liverpool's strengths last season, that they kept players fit. And again, one of the kind of small mitigating factors they've had at the start of this season is that they've had a few injuries and quite different to last season in that sense. So, but again, if that's clearing up, it's one less excuse to lean on. It's something that you've got to use. So, let's hope that Liverpool can do that. And of course, Leone being out is a bit of a blow, but he would have been primarily featuring in the League Cup anyway. So, Liverpool are getting close to a fully fit squad, and so should be able to manage their way through these games and as we said, the winnable games as well.
Definitely are. And you probably clocked this article. It was a great one by Michael Reed, but it was a bit of a horror read, in all honesty, at the same time, pardon the pun there. So about long passes, pressing, possession, set plays, away form, which in summary has been pretty horrendous across the board, especially in recent times. I mean, as far as we know, Arne Slot's not gone to Dubai, Ibiza, or anything like that. He's been at, Anfield working at things at the AXA. What do you think he will have trying to been looking at? What are you almost expecting or hoping to see when we come back?
When you consider it's kind of these lower teams that Liverpool are going to be facing, of course, the flip side of that is that a lot of them will play a brand of football that Liverpool will be quite uncomfortable with, to be honest. So that's going to make things really difficult for them. So, you've got to work on all those things that are mentioned. I thought the piece was really interesting. I think Michael's stuff's great. And is dealing with long balls, dealing with the second balls off those. Because Liverpool's aerial win rate, by the way, is very, very high in comparison to other Premier League teams. I think they might actually have the best aerial win rate in the Premier League this season. But it's where that ball's dropping and when it drops, whether they win it. So you've got to start winning those. So I think that's the way, Liverpool have got to get better at that. I think second balls is just a massive, massive factor for them this season. So I think that's getting players close around your centre-halves when they're winning the ball, getting your midfielders close to them to kind of pick up the scraps. Just being kind of organised in that. Because I do think there's a physicality issue for Liverpool there in terms of covering ground and getting there to win the second ball. But also you can just be a bit smarter about it and position your players closer when the long ball's being played. You've just got to acknowledge that press and being front-footed and pushing onto them it's not going to work for you in a game where they're not asked about being pressed and they're just going to boot the ball along anyway. Yeah. So rather than kind of pushing your 2 or your 3 midfielders on to kind of lock on to midfielders who are never going to receive the ball anyway, just maybe drop them off a little bit, get them close to the centre halves, create your relationships there and make sure they're there to clean up. That's maybe something we have to see. One thing I would say, though, by the way, on kind of tactical concerns, and seeing a lot of this is kind of people saying, they look at tactics and say, oh, well, this is disastrous and this is disastrous. And these are all the problems that Liverpool have got. And they have so many tactical issues. But what I would point to is kind of a lot of the time is don't maybe go over the top in kind of assessing, well, why have we got all these tactical issues? What is the manager doing? Why aren't these things being fixed? It's like, if you went back and watched Man City last season, you could point, or you watched Arsenal last season, you would find all these tactical issues, all these tactical problems that you think, well, again, why is the manager not solving them? Well, so many of the problems get solved by personnel. It's you can point out to these tactical issues that are consistently coming up. Well, they were for Arsenal last season. That's why they were losing loads of games. They were for City last season. That's why they were losing loads of games. So are we saying that last season Pep Guardiola and Mikel Arteta were poor managers? And are we saying now this season that Arne Slot, because he's got these tactical issues that he's not dealing with seemingly, he is a poor manager? The thing is that like kind of you can go through games and seasons where you've got a tactical issue, but nobody really exposes it that well, or they might expose it a couple of times, but you keep the ball so well that it's not a problem, or you score the goals in key moments in games because Isak is fit and firing, and therefore because basically there's no perfect tactic out there. So I think we're kind of going too deep into it sometimes in terms of saying how bad Liverpool are, and they have been poor this season. Don't get me wrong. But it's we talk about it sometimes like it's always a fixable problem. And sometimes it's just about having better players than the opposition. And that helps you through a lot of the time. And I don't think, with Liverpool, sometimes you could say, oh, well, they should have better players on the pitch, but they've not got a Wirtz who's performing at his full potential. They've not got an Isak who's anywhere near his potential either. And, sometimes it's just about the players. And I think if Liverpool can get the rhythm going a little bit, and they can get more from Kirkes as well, and Wirtz and Isak, a lot of these tactical problems that we're seeing will kind of just evaporate along with that. What I'm saying is kind of don't get sucked into the idea that this is a manager problem and the manager's doing this wrong and he could just fix this problem. It's like Pep couldn't fix City's problems last season for large parts of it. I know someone's saying there he spent 200 million in January and got better. I don't think they got much better, to be honest, after January. I was still kind of saying at that point, they've still got massive weaknesses here, but they seem to have solved a lot of them now. And they kind of seem to be hitting a rhythm now, don't they? Outside of the problem with nobody else but Haaland scoring goals. So I think personnel can help is what I'm saying. And a lot of these problems they're not unfixable, or they might not even need to be fixed. They might get covered up by other areas, because that's kind of what football is sometimes. Football is generally, and this phrase only gets used as a negative, but I always think this is the sport, in summary, really, is papering over the cracks, because you will always have cracks in your team. And it's about trying to cover those up as much as you can, really, and make yourself a functional football team.
Is there a way, and I never want to compare us directly to us, but we do feel a bit like City last season. City were well off the top, but you knew they were going to finish third or fourth. You knew they were going to qualify because of quality they had. But they had their stars maybe coming to an end and not shining, like De Bruyne. Haaland was off it for a while, like we're kind of seeing a bit with Salah and others. But, that there was gaps in midfield, whereas we've got issues with the physicality. It's kind of just like that. You'd probably expect us to still finish in the top four, of course, but then it is going to probably be cash and personnel longer term to do it.
Yeah, this is it. I think the main difference to say is that City were probably a little bit more like that, the Jurgen Klopp season where Liverpool ended up finishing fifth, in that they had, like you say, the kind of aging stars, and you knew that the only fix to that really was to get to the summer and kind of sort it out. Whereas for Liverpool, I think there's improvement here that I want to see within the season, because I think there's potential for it there. I mean, if this is the level that Kirkes plays at for his Liverpool career, I mean, what a bad signing that has been. Yeah. Very much the same for Isak, the same for Wirtz. And I just don't believe that all three are going to be bad signings in that way. So I think there are improvements to come from them. And then, of course, the improvements to come from the collective when they start to gel a little bit more. So I want to see Liverpool have a very strong finish to this season. And I will be, that's what I need to be kind of encouraged. But in the meantime, we are still going to see some issues and them working that out. And I think that puts a kind of cap on where they can finish. Of course, the points gap also does as well. So it's all about that kind of, But I think there are improvements, and I think that's the difference, is that I think Liverpool can finish stronger than City did last season, and then look to kind of fix the last couple of problems then in the market, and then hopefully, be right back up there.
I mean, we can only do so much, and there's January in the summer. I suppose in the immediate future, and it's the Forest game, obviously, on Saturday, there's now going to be decisions to be made, because you hope Isak obviously comes back fit, all midfielders, Curtis Jones is available, Alisson, you expect to go straight back in. How are you seeing the Forest starting lineup? Touch wood, provided everyone comes back okay.
It's really, really tough decision to make here, because I think that Wirtz on the left-hand side kind of brought a real balance, didn't we? Kind of liked it. It didn't look great in City, but I just think you almost have to write the City game off. It was so bad, and City were much better there. That you almost have to ignore that. But it's like, is it better against a Forest to have a goal-scoring winger who's going to kind of run in behind in Gakpo? It probably is, but then so what do you do with Florian Wirtz? You probably don't want to put him back in central midfield where he's being bullied a little bit. So, some really tough decisions to make for the manager, and honestly ones that I find hard to call myself. Really, it's I think it's a really difficult one.
It is tough. You do think that at some point, I suppose, he's going to have to work out what is his best side for this period, even if a star has to suffer or have some time on the bench. How do Liverpool look best? And I suppose the only one that is being alluded to a lot, I would say, at the moment, is Liverpool's personnel and how they set up. Yes, they're short of centre-halves right now, but you've probably seen a lot of the talk that everything around Liverpool long-term suits a back three. And obviously, we know Arne Slot's never played it. It would be completely new for Liverpool as well. What are your thoughts on that as like potential and for the future, and getting it, as people seem to allude to, and I get this, Wirtz behind Isak and Ekitike up top?
Yeah, it'd fix a lot of problems, really, wouldn't it? Particularly, as you say, when Salah's away, in terms of not having a kind of natural replacement for him, kind of covering off some of Kirkes's weaknesses that he's showing at the moment in terms of how involved in build-up he has to be, getting Frimpong in a more natural position whenever he's fit. Yeah. You could use Robertson left-sided centre-half, which is a position he's played for his country as well. So maybe that boosts your options there. They do just look one centre-half short, don't they? But, what the mix it would give you really is, it kind of looks like it would work a lot, but I don't know. I'd be surprised if the manager goes there, really. I mean, I suppose he has done it. He did it in the League Cup, didn't he? Recently. So, maybe it's something he's thinking about, but it's an interesting one. I wouldn't be against seeing it while Salah's at AFCON, because I think it would get a lot of your good players in the team, which is always a really good way of going about winning football games. But it's whether he's minded to kind of make that shift, and it does feel like a significant one, and it does leave you a little bit exposed in terms of further centre half injuries. But yeah, we'll have to see. I mean, I'd be intrigued to see it, because I think it would. It does feel like it would work, but whether the manager is ready for that kind of sweeping change and what that says about the squad he's built, and whether, would that really have been the idea all along? I'm not so convinced. I don't know. It's a fascinating one, I think.
Will be one to. Do you think, I suppose the final question on this, if another centre-half was to arrive in January, or defensive player, would that make you think they might have a go at this?
Yeah, maybe, but I kind of agree with the comment there, actually, that three at the back is not really a system you want to see with a top team that wants to dominate the ball in a certain way. I would lean towards that, if I'm honest. So, but obviously, if Slot goes down this route, then he obviously has seen a reason for it. If that's the squad they continue to build. But of course, they didn't go with Ruben Amorim because they felt that he would have been too big of a change and go into that three at the back, but then they've kind of accidentally ended up with a squad that really kind of suits it. So, but I don't feel like that's the aim, and I would be surprised if that ends up happening. Maybe we're just building this up in our minds because the results haven't been right at the moment, and the moment that Liverpool go on a consistent run, we probably stop talking about it. So, I feel like they're not going to, but equally, if he wants to try it in the FA Cup or anything, I wouldn't be against it just to see how it worked out.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see. There's a lot to watch for the summer. There's a lot to watch January, AFCON. There's a lot to watch in the immediate future.
To be fair, just on that actually, but I mean, one of the things to think about, and this is a real possibility for AFCON, is the to stick with 4 at the back and go with a diamond midfield and get all your width from your fullbacks. Now, whether that is something he's thinking about to get Isak and Ekitike there, to get Wirtz at the point where he wants to operate. Now that's one to maybe keep an eye on, and I'd be really interested to see what comes around when AFCON's there.
They've got to do something, haven't they? It's got to change from the immediate future and what we've seen recently. But there we go, people. Touch wood. Everyone's coming back from internationals. There's still a few to keep an eye on. Contracts and transfers are starting to ramp up. It doesn't look like it's going to be mad busy in January. We'll have to see. And 3 at the back, 4 at the back, diamond in midfield. Let's just hope some tactic works in the immediate future. All it leaves me to say as ever is, for the time, the insight, and for answering every single question, David, it is massively appreciated.
Thanks for having me.
And ladies and gents, that was another Media Matters by Anfield.